The air hung heavy with the scent of rain and kimchi, a familiar blend that spoke of home and comfort to many in this bustling neighborhood. As Detective Samantha Cho arrived at the crime scene, the rain seemed to intensify, as if the heavens themselves were mourning the loss of another soul. Neon lights flickered off the wet pavement, casting an eerie glow on the body sprawled in the alleyway. The vibrant colors of the signs above contrasted sharply with the grim reality below. Jae-hoon Park, restaurant owner, beloved community member. Now just another statistic in the city's growing crime rate. His smile, once a beacon of warmth, was now a haunting memory. A single bullet wound marred his forehead, a chilling message left for anyone who dared to cross the line. The precision of the shot spoke volumes about the killer's intent. Cho knelt beside the body, her eyes scanning the scene with a practiced intensity. Every detail mattered, every clue could be the key to solving this heinous crime. A wave of nausea washed over her, but she pushed it down, focusing on the details. She had seen many crime scenes, but this one felt personal. The victim's eyes stared vacantly, reflecting the harsh city lights. They seemed to tell a story of their own, a silent witness to the final moments of his life. His hands were empty, his expression frozen in a silent plea. It was as if he had been caught off guard, unable to defend himself against the sudden attack. Something about the scene felt off, a discordant note in the familiar symphony of urban violence. The meticulous nature of the crime suggested a deeper motive. This wasn't just a robbery gone wrong, this was an execution. The precision, the coldness, it all pointed to a calculated act of violence. Cho had known Jae-hoon, a kind man with a quick smile and a generous heart. He was more than just a restaurant owner, he was a pillar of the community. He had always been ready with a warm meal and words of encouragement for those struggling in their new homeland. His restaurant was a haven for many, a place where people felt seen and valued. Now his life had been snuffed out, a cruel reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. The alleyway, once just another part of the city, now felt like a graveyard. A deep rage, cold and steady, ignited in Cho's chest. She had seen too many good people fall victim to senseless violence, and she was determined to bring the perpetrator to justice. She would find whoever did this. She owed Jae-hoon that much. Justice would be served. The rain continued to pour, but Cho's resolve was unwavering. She would not rest until the streets of Koreatown were safe once more. The investigation hit a wall almost immediately. Detective Cho, a seasoned investigator with years of experience, found herself staring at a crime scene board that offered more questions than answers. The frustration was palpable in the dimly lit office, where the shadows seemed to mock her every effort. Witnesses were scarce, their memories conveniently hazy. It was as if the crime had happened in a vacuum, leaving behind only the faintest traces of evidence. The few who did come forward were hesitant, their eyes darting nervously as if expecting retribution at any moment. Those who dared to speak whispered of fear, their voices barely audible over the oppressive silence that seemed to hang in the air. They spoke in hushed tones, as if the very walls had ears, and every word could bring about their doom. They spoke of a powerful organization controlling Koreatown's underbelly. This shadowy syndicate had its tentacles in every corner of the community, from the bustling markets to the quiet residential streets. It was a force to be reckoned with, and its influence was both pervasive and insidious. They spoke of protection money, of threats, of a system that thrived on fear and intimidation. Businesses were forced to pay for their safety, and those who refused found themselves at the mercy of ruthless enforcers. The phone calls came at all hours, each one a chilling reminder of the consequences of defiance. Families were torn apart for daring to resist. The cost of standing up to the syndicate was often paid in blood, and the scars ran deep. The community lived in a state of perpetual anxiety, always looking over their shoulders, always wondering who would be next. Cho listened patiently, her frustration mounting with each evasive answer. She could see the fear in their eyes, the way their hands trembled as they spoke. It was a delicate dance, trying to coax information from those who had been conditioned to stay silent. The Korean-American community, tight-knit and proud, had always been wary of outsiders. They had built a world within a world, a place where their traditions and values could thrive. But this insularity also made them vulnerable, and the syndicate had exploited this to its advantage. Even those tasked with their protection were viewed with suspicion. Years of cultural differences and language barriers had bred mistrust and a code of silence that shielded criminals. The police were seen as outsiders, and their presence often did more harm than good. The cultural festivals and crowded markets were a testament to the community's resilience, but they also highlighted the challenges of bridging the gap between law enforcement and the people they were meant to protect. The language barriers were just one aspect of a deeper, more complex divide. Cho understood their hesitation, the deep-rooted fear of retaliation. She had seen it too many times before. in too many places. The fear was almost palpable, a living, breathing entity that seemed to permeate every interaction. She had seen it too many times before. The same patterns, the same stories, the same heartbreaking outcomes. But she also knew that every case was unique, and that there was always a way to break through the wall of silence. But she also recognized the glimmer of hope in their eyes, the desperate plea for someone to break the cycle of fear. It was a fragile hope, easily extinguished, but it was there, and it was enough to keep her going. The community wanted justice for Yehun just as much as she did. They wanted to see the perpetrators brought to justice, to see an end to the reign of terror that had gripped their lives. They wanted to believe that change was possible. They wanted justice for Jaehoon just as much as she did. The memorials, the grieving families, the tears shed in quiet moments of reflection, all of it spoke to a collective yearning for closure, for peace. Cho knew she had to gain their trust, to convince them that their voices mattered. It was a daunting task, but she was determined. She knew that trust was not given lightly, especially in a community that had been betrayed so many times before. She had to show them that she was on their side, that she was committed to their cause. She had to be more than just a detective. She had to be an ally, a friend, a protector. It was a role she was willing to embrace no matter the cost. It was a daunting task, but Cho was not one to back down from a challenge. She had faced adversity before, and she knew that the only way to overcome it was through perseverance and determination. She was ready to fight for this community, to be their shield against the darkness. She would be their shield, their voice in the darkness. She would stand with them, fight for them, and do whatever it took to bring justice to Koreatown. The road ahead was long and fraught with danger, but Cho was prepared. She knew that the only way to break the cycle of fear was to confront it head-on, and she was ready to do just that. Days bled into weeks, the investigation progressing at a glacial pace. Each passing moment felt like an eternity as Detective Cho sifted through mountains of paperwork, re-examined evidence, and re-interviewed witnesses. The case was proving to be more complex than she had ever imagined, with each new lead seeming to dissolve into thin air. The frustration was palpable, and the pressure from her superiors was mounting. They wanted results, and they wanted them yesterday. The pressure mounted as Cho chased dead ends and encountered a wall of silence. Every door she knocked on seemed to close in her face, and every witness she spoke to was either uncooperative or too scared to talk. The streets were whispering, but no one was willing to speak up. It was as if an invisible hand was guiding her away from the truth, pushing her deeper into a labyrinth of deception and fear. The more she pushed, the more resistance she met, and the more determined she became to uncover the truth. Just when her frustration peaked, a break came from an unexpected source. A mysterious note appeared on her desk one morning, its contents cryptic yet tantalizing. The envelope was plain with no return address, and the handwriting was unfamiliar. As she read the note, a sense of realization washed over her. This was the lead she had been waiting for, the key to unlocking the secrets that had eluded her for so long. It was a small glimmer of hope in an otherwise bleak investigation. A crumpled note slipped under her door, a cryptic message leading her to a hidden world beneath the city's glittering facade. The note spoke of places and people she had never heard of, hinting at a shadowy underworld that operated just out of sight. It was a world of secrets and lies, where danger lurked around every corner and trust was a rare commodity. The city's neon lights masked the darkness that lay beneath, a darkness that Cho was now determined to uncover. It spoke of a powerful Korean-American crime syndicate known as the Dragon's Tail. This organization was unlike any she had encountered before, its members bound by a code of silence and loyalty that was nearly impossible to penetrate. They operated in the shadows, their activities hidden from the prying eyes of law enforcement. The Dragon's Tail was a name that struck fear into the hearts of those who knew of its existence, a name that was whispered in hushed tones and never spoken aloud. Their reach extended far beyond Koreatown, their tendrils intertwined with corrupt officials and ruthless businessmen. The syndicate's influence was pervasive, stretching into the highest echelons of power. They had allies in places Cho could only dream of reaching, and their network was vast and well protected. The more she learned, the more she realized just how deep the rabbit hole went. This was not just a local gang. It was a well-oiled machine with connections that spanned the globe. The note claimed they were involved in smuggling, extortion, and even murder, their operations shrouded in secrecy and fear. They trafficked in everything from drugs to human lives, their activities leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. The victims were many, but the perpetrators remained elusive, hidden behind layers of deception and intimidation. The more Cho uncovered, the more she realized the scale of the operation she was up against. This was not just a criminal organization. It was a well-entrenched empire built on fear and violence. At the heart of this web of corruption was a shadowy figure known only as the Wolf, a ruthless leader who commanded absolute loyalty and instilled paralyzing fear. The Wolf was a name that sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened criminals. His identity was a closely guarded secret, known only to a select few. He was a ghost, a phantom who moved through the shadows, his presence felt but never seen. The wolf was the mastermind behind the dragon's tail, the puppet master pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Cho's gut told her this was the missing piece, the thread that connected Jae-hoon's murder to a much larger conspiracy. The pieces of the puzzle were finally starting to come together, and the picture they formed was more terrifying than she had ever imagined. Jae-hoon's murder was not an isolated incident, it was part of a larger scheme, a plot that reached into the very heart of the city. The more she uncovered, the more she realized just how dangerous her investigation had become. It was a dangerous game she was playing, delving into the city's underbelly, but she knew she couldn't ignore this lead. The risks were high, but the stakes were even higher. She was walking a fine line between justice and retribution, and one wrong move could cost her everything. But Cho was not one to back down from a challenge. She was determined to see this through to the end, no matter the cost. The city's underbelly was a dark and dangerous place, but it was also where the truth lay hidden. The dragon's tail had been operating in the shadows for too long, their grip on the Korean-American community suffocating. They had built an empire on fear and intimidation, and it was time for that empire to fall. Cho knew that exposing them would not be easy, but she also knew that it was the right thing to do. The community deserved to live without fear, and she was determined to give them that chance. The dragon's tail had ruled the shadows for too long, and it was time to bring them into the light. It was time to expose them to the light. The journey ahead was fraught with danger, but Cho was ready. She had the determination, the skills, and now the lead she needed to bring the dragon's tail to justice. The shadows of a larger conspiracy loomed over her, but she was not afraid. She was ready to shine a light into the darkest corners of the city and reveal the truth. The battle was just beginning, and Cho was prepared to fight with everything she had. The dragon's tail would be exposed, and justice would be served.